while we were at Wat Marp Jan's monastery, we were saying sadhu then for all of the people who were there seeking out merit, creating good deeds. And so many people went to create acts of merit, to be abandoning unskillful things. And so when we do good things through our body, through our speech, or through our mind, then sometimes we wish for other people to praise us, for them to see the good things that we've done, and for them to say that what we've done is good. Or sometimes people criticize us, and we don't want for them to do that. But we should understand that it's just normal for us in this world to be receiving these things, that when we do goodness, then the result of that is goodness. That when we do bad things, the result is badness. And some people, they look at others a lot, and that's a lot of suffering for them. To be looking at others, to be criticizing others a lot. Ajahn taught us that we should observe ourselves 90% of the time and observe others just 10%. To not be finding fault with others, because doing that just doesn't give any benefit for us. But what we need for ourselves is to get our views so that they are correct, so the samma ditthi, right view. And as we get older and older, and if we still have this firm sense of self, then and we don't have right view, then there'll just be more and more of me and mine, me and you. We'll be getting very jealous, be finding fault with others. And the mind lacks in kindness and compassion. So that's what it's like for a mind that doesn't have Dhamma, that just want to get more and more things. But if we look back to the time when we were a child, that maybe when we were in the womb we can't remember that, but as soon as we were born, there were painful feelings that we experienced. So we felt hungry, for instance, and then we would cry, try to get away from that painful feeling. Or if an ant bit us, then we would cry to try to get our mother or father or someone to come and help us. But at that time, the mind didn't have any of these proliferations or concoctions, because it didn't know language. It didn't know the conventions of language, and so it didn't have all these creations of the mind, these concoctions. But when the mind does get to know language already, then it clings to that and then proliferates. But if however the child is quite young and their brain is not yet very developed, then they won't be able to see the Dhamma. So it's at the age of 7 that the brain becomes developed enough for us to use wisdom to be able to see the Dhamma. So like Lady Visakha, that at 7 years old, that she knew the Dhamma, saw the Dhamma, and became a stream enterer. And that was due to the parami, the spiritual qualities, virtues that she had created in the past. That even though she was just 7 years old, she could see the Dhamma. So we also observed that those people who are really intent on the practice, that they needed to have created the causes for this first, that they needed to have effort first, to have the sincerity first. So when we went to practice at Wat Marp, then we did that in homage, offered our homage of practice to Ajahn Chah. And so one night we stayed up practicing the whole night, and we could do that. And so this quality of great sincerity, of really setting our hearts on it, of persisting and being intent, this is something that we can do. We have this really daring effort. And it also helps having a team as well, because we see others doing it, and then we think, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. And so being together like that, it helps us to pull our minds towards effort and to be abandoning laziness. So this practice of Nesa Chika, it's the practice of not lying down, and it's one of the ascetic practices. And these are practices which wear away at the defilements. And they're practices for people who want to see the Dhamma, those who want to make their practice a bit more intense, a bit stricter. So normally we may rest for 4 or 5 hours at night, but then as time goes on, we increase that to 6 hours and then 7 hours. But if we spend one night without any rest, then we'll get the feeling that, well, if I just rest for 1 or 2 hours, then that's enough already. So it brings up this attitude of like putting up a fight. If we just sleep a lot, then the hindrances will kind of take over the mind. They'll be in charge. And so the mind won't be bright in that state. And so we carry on with this practice, or when we're doing this practice of not resting at night, and then we bring up meditation, word, or a mantra, and use that to fight with these hindrances and bring the mind to a state of brightness. And we can recollect how, at the time of the Buddha, there were many arahants who made the determination to not lie down for their entire lives. And in this day and age, there are some monks who do that as well, who don't lie down for their entire life. And there are also some monks who are able to do that for 5 years. And when they go to sleep, they sleep in the sitting posture. So they can do that for 5 years. So for us, if we do it for one night, we're not going to die. And if we don't have any serious illnesses, then it won't be dangerous for us. And if it is something that's going to be very dangerous for us, then we probably would have died already. But it's our defilements that have this concern for the body, that they bring up all these thoughts of worry about the body. So we need to train our minds to reduce these kinds of thoughts, to reduce our thinking, to use our mindfulness a lot, to bring up these meditation phrases or words to be contemplating, and try to kind of increase the amount that we do that, so that we can stop our mind from thinking. And however long it is that we're able to stop the mind from thinking, then our minds will gain energy to that degree. And we can use that energy then to contemplate and then to gain insight. So insight, for example, into this body and how it is something which is not beautiful. So some practitioners, they like to use this object of asubha, of contemplating the unattractive aspect of the body. And for others, they may like to contemplate the 4 elements instead. That maybe they get the feeling when they do asubha practice that it's too disgusting, and then their minds start becoming dry and depressed. So they can contemplate the 4 elements, that of earth and water and fire, air. Or can contemplate asubha, the non-beautiful view of the body. You can contemplate the 32 parts of the body, which start off with the hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin, and contemplate to see how these things are unattractive. So just like the hair on our head, that we see this hair as being me or belonging to me. We see it as being beautiful. But what about if we don't wash it? Will it stay beautiful? That it starts getting itchy. The bacteria on our scalp starts to do its duty. And there's the oil which helps to feed the hair. But then the bacteria starts feeding on that oil as well. And so those bacteria multiply and they cause an itchiness to the scalp. So with the hair on our head, if we drop one by one a strand of hair into a pot of curry, then that food will lose all of its value, won't it? And what about if we had a whole handful of hair? Even if we had washed it first, if it was something that we'd cleaned, but we drop it into a pot, then there's just no value there anymore. That curry becomes unclean. So we see that the nature of these things is that they are unclean. However, we feel like they're beautiful, and that's delusion within us. So if we see this as being beautiful, then samadhi won't arise. And these two things, they're opposed to each other. That if we have a feeling of attraction or aversion in the heart, if the mind is restless and scattered, if there are doubts, if there's ill will, these obstruct the arising of samadhi. But if we can view the body in a way that it's not beautiful, then samadhi will arise. So as practitioners, we must contemplate. And the more that we can see the body as being unattractive, the more beautiful our hearts will become. We can contemplate the hair of the body in the same way. And also the nails, view them in a way that's not beautiful. Because normally we see them as being beautiful. But if we cut off a nail, then what is it? It's something that's unattractive, just like our hair. And the teeth, which are there in our mouth, that we put food into our mouths, and then they become unclean. The bacteria within the mouth starts to work on that food, and the teeth within our mouth are unattractive. So contemplate like this, and if we take a tooth out, is it still beautiful? It's just a bone that is unattractive. So this body which we take as being something attractive, well, what is inside it? And it's not just something, just solid, homogeneous entity inside, but it has all different kinds of things within it. It's like a bag that has all manner of things inside. So there are many different organs in this body. And if we cut the skin open, then we'll see the various organs and start seeing the heart and the lungs and the liver, the kidneys. And there's also the intestines that have the old food within it. And then there's also the newer food that we've just eaten. And the body is filled with all these different things. But if the body is closed up by the skin, then all we see is the skin. And we can feel like it's an attractive thing. And the mind is extremely fast. That as soon as it gets covered with skin, then we start seeing it as being attractive. But then when we look inside, it's unattractive. So it's like a coffin, and we decorate the coffin and put flowers on it, and seeing it as being something attractive, it's something beautiful. But when we open that coffin, there's a dead body inside. and it's not beautiful, and so that's why we need to close it up. And the body is the same. So we need to be cleaning it all the time. We need to close it up, because inside it's not beautiful. We need to close it up so that we're able to live with one another. And Ajahn Chah, he said to his monks that if we took off the skin of all the people here, they'd just be red, and there'd be this smell of raw meat. And so maybe we've smelled that before, uncooked raw food. It has a certain odor to it. And that's the odor we get from the inside of the body. And that the blood starts going off because the temperature, it's not quite right. And the bacteria there starts working on it, starts consuming it. So we contemplate then. Contemplate the internal body, contemplate our external body, contemplate the body of others. So the body inside, what is that like then? And the Buddha had his monks contemplate in this way, had them go to stay in caves or underneath trees, and then investigate the body in the body. So what's there? When we peel off the skin, what's inside? And you see there's a skeleton there underneath. So there's the skull, and then all the various other bones in the body, the ribs and the collarbones, and all the bones throughout the arms and the legs and the feet. And these make up our skeleton. So just like a house has its skeleton, it has its framework, it's made from steel. But then we come and we put concrete around that and bricks around it, and then we overlay put a smooth layer of concrete over that to render it, and then we paint it. And then we take that as being something beautiful. It looks beautiful. But if we start peeling those layers off, like if we start peeling the paint off, then it's not beautiful anymore. We can see the concrete underneath and see the bricks. And then we take those off, and then we can see its skeleton, see the framework of steel. So it's not beautiful then, and we're not deluded in it then. So the body is the same. That when we start to peel off its layers, we start to peel off its skin, it's not beautiful anymore. We can see that there's a skeleton there that's underneath. And it becomes even less attractive when we see those decay and break apart. So see the bones break and turn back to the earth element. So practitioners, we should investigate in this way, seeing the body as being unattractive until the mind can settle into peace. And then we can see the body break apart and view it as merely a body. It's not a being, not an individual. It's not me, it's not you. And the mind can come into emptiness and peace. And then one day a clear knowledge will arise, and we'll see the Dhamma. We'll see into conventions and liberation, samuti and vimuti. So changing this view that we once had as me and mine, but then one day gaining the feeling that everything is empty. And here we enter into the Dhamma. So we need to change our views from wrong views to right views. When we were a child, the thoughts that we had were very few. But then as we get older, we think more and more, and we have more and more defilement. So the mind, this earlier mind, papasara citta, this mind which is bright and clean, it starts over time to be defiled by these kilesas. And it's like they come in through the things that we see with our eyes, and through what we hear with our ears, and smell with our nose, taste with our tongue, things that touch the body. And these defilements grow, and we collect them. So they get gathered up and stored within our minds. But when we were children, we didn't have many defilements. As we get older, however, then these get stored up. So therefore we need to try to practice, to change the situation, to get our views right. And we do that with effort. So like this practice of staying up at night, of not lying down, this is a very meritorious thing that we have done. And it's a really good experience for us to offer our practice in homage to Ajahn Chah at his monastery, Nombapong, and that we can see so many people with hearts of faith who have gathered together. And there's a really special energy there, this energy of Dhamma. And we, having seen that, you can recollect that at the time of the Buddha, that there were so many people who came together. These days, there's maybe 500 monks that come together, and they come together with prior notice. But at the time of the Buddha, there was 1,250 Arahant monks who came together with no notice. And it's really incredible. That all of these Arahants, and they were fully awakened beings as well, they could all come together. So we can recollect this. This can be a form of Buddha Anusati, the recollection of the Buddha, and seeing just how incredible, how wonderful the Dhamma of the Buddha is. That the Buddha was the most wonderful, amazing being. And then he taught this Dhamma, which gave rise to many members of the Sangha, many awakened beings that have come down right to this present day. They've come down to us until Ajahn Chah. So we've had this opportunity then to offer our practice in homage, and we've probably received the results of that practice already. So may all of you grow in blessings.